Okay.
Move on to talk about the city manager and the administration. Now the question's for you, Clem. You said before the primary election we keep everything on the plate too long. We don't check enough boxes. What's been kept on the plate too long at City Hall? And why hasn't the city, under your council, checked enough boxes?
I think that there has been a tendency on the part of Gordon Palmer to be extraordinarily methodical in the wake of the person that he replaced. And I believe that decisions have become ponderous and very slow. I'm talking mostly about administrative decisions.
Like what?
The reorganization took him an extraordinarily long time. I mean, given the fact that we had a consultant's, 2 cents, a very credible consultant's 2 cents on what a reorganization might entail, it just took too long. He just needs to pull the trigger more quickly. He needs to come out of the box right now and tell this community what he's going to do about the chief of police. That needs to happen immediately, not in a week, not in 2 weeks, not in a month, not when Morris actually leaves the building. That's what there's considered to be a vacuum in leadership, and that is part of it. It's the methodology. It's not necessarily his intentions, not necessarily his analysis, but you have to act. Leadership is an active thing, not a passive thing, and you have to act. And as a result, I do think that some matters just stay on the plate and get bigger than they need to be.
Well, that's my biggest criticism with the last 4 years in City Hall, is there has been no leadership, there's been no direction. You can talk about standing up and doing things, but I haven't seen very much done. Everything's been given to the city manager, who is overseeing a City Hall that a consultant last year called constipated, because nothing gets out, everything goes in and nothing gets out. So I think it's important that, leadership needs to be taken by the mayor and the city council, and if Gordon Palmer or any other city manager is not producing the information, not taking the actions, not acting proactively, then they have to hold them accountable. It really, the buck stops with the elected officials. And the most frustrating thing I have always had with city operations is how long it takes to get anything out of a city hall, how long it takes to get responses to requests for information, particularly to financial reports. I mean, in reality, this whole budget situation would not have occurred had there been somebody paying attention to the newspapers a year and a half ago, paying attention to the stock market, paying attention to what's happening out in the community with businesses. We wouldn't be having to reduce $23 million right now. We would have started a year ago in the budget that was begun last November. So I'm saying that there's no leadership, there's a lack of direction, the city manager is not held accountable, city staff is swirling around trying to figure out what end is up, and that's the problem.
Would you lead an effort to replace Gordon?
I won't say I would lead an effort. I believe in giving people a fair chance. I want him to perform. I want to see how he performs under a new direction, a new mayor, a new city council. Because I've heard a lot of criticisms, a lot of positive things from both sides, and I believe in giving people a fair chance. And I've never worked with the man. I do not know. I believe that he needs a fair shot at it. If he can't perform, then we need to look for another city manager. It's real simple.
And I would agree with that. Gordon Palmer is a good man of the utmost integrity, and he deserves a fair chance from whichever one of us is elected. He also deserves some direction. And I would agree that he hasn't received that as fully as he might have. But let's talk about leadership then. If, and I've hammered this before, we chatted in the lobby about, we've all heard this before, we could probably recite each other's lines and, just in fun, trade seats and have a second debate where we were each other and probably do just as well. But the fact of the matter is, where's the leadership when I inherit a budget that has no formal reserves? And I know that you'll eventually get around to trying to call a fund balance formal reserves, but they're not formal reserves. If we had the kind of reserves that we're supposed to have, if we had them from the time you started on the council in 1996, we would be able to mitigate this financial crisis the way reserves are supposed to allow you to mitigate a financial crisis, and we wouldn't have the dire situation that we have. And again, as long as we're forecasting, let's just be clear that 6 months ago you told these small unions that you would enhance their retirements, but you also foresaw this big economic crisis. Well, the fact is that those two things are kind of mutually exclusive. You're not going to enhance somebody's retirement benefits package if you've got this kind of crisis looming on the horizon. I have led, and I have moved the agenda. When I'm given an opportunity, and I've been given many opportunities because Mayor Chavez has relied upon me to take on tough assignments, we would not have a big box ordinance for the city of Stockton if not for me. Let me just say that. It's the truth. I'm not breaking my arm, patting myself on the back. I made that happen. That was going nowhere. I said, get it on the agenda, let's do it. Things big and small. The therapeutic pool on Bianchi Road, the Easter Seals folks were going to cut us loose, and we were going down the river without a therapeutic pool that was used by hundreds of elderly folks, low-income people who didn't have the resources to go searching out the other therapeutic pool, which, you know, God only knows where that is. I asked the mayor to put me on the ad hoc committee. He put me on it. And not only did we fix the problem, but I made staff move the agenda and get it on council agendas far sooner than they wanted to do it. Over and over, I've played that role. We added cops to the budget because I insisted. Staff was trying to take them off. I added them. Now the trick is going to be, the leadership trick with this budget, is I don't care about the MOUs and the raises and all of that nonsense. We need to fill our quota of police officers. And if that needs to be part of this overall budget thing, if we're going to start treating police officers as equal to every other employee in the city, I think that's just folly, because eventually we're going to hear how out of control crime is. If everything's most important, nothing's most important, you have to take care of whatever your top priority is first.
And what about the big box ordinance, the therapeutic pools, and the police officers? So those examples of leadership, can you give us some examples of yours?
Can I respond to what he said about the reserves first, and then let me go at that?
Oh, yeah.
Stockton didn't have an official reserve budget, quote, reserve budget, but it had money in certain accounts, and it had carryover funds. And yes, my Clem doesn't think that that counts as a reserve. We were not in flush economic times in the 90s. We were at times where we barely balanced a budget, and we balanced them on vacancies. That's a fact. You all know that. But we were able to get through some of the tougher times. And our employees also didn't take cost of living raises for several years, too. We were able to negotiate our way through the situation. So I think that's key to remember about the economic times that there were. And frankly, I never promised any unions I never promised them enhanced benefits. I don't make promises to unions because I'm not in a position to do that. It's all part of negotiations. I said we would fairly look at them. We would examine them for equity and fairness. I have not promised anyone any enhanced retirement benefits. As far as leadership in terms of the financial situation, Clem has been head of budget committee for the last 4 years. I've been off the council for 6 years. For crying out loud. Budgets were in his responsibility at that time. I mean, I was not on the council to watch for it, but certainly you would think that the head of the budget committee would be paying far more attention to the income, the revenues, and the expenditures when you're looking at budgets over the last 4 years. Obviously, this whole situation with the nation and the state has occurred over the last 2 years, but it doesn't take a rocket scientist to see that it was happening 2 years ago and appropriate action should have been taken. So where was he in the whole budget process at that time? Because that to me is a major responsibility. Cities are driven by budgets. We have to be sure that the budget is balanced and sound and based upon realities, not wish lists. And to build this year's budget on a 5% increase in sales taxes, who would they talk to? All they had to do is go out to a local retail business and say, what are your sales like? I could have told them, they're down. Our sales tax are down. What's your property valued at? Well, it's down because of the economy. It's a no-brainer if you look at revenue and expenses. So I say that, you know, blaming it all on past councils for what's happening today is ridiculous. You know, this whole situation has occurred over the last 4, 5, 6 years. It's critical that we take it as it is today and really look at it objectively. As to The big box ordinance, I'll give him credit. He got the big box ordinance. I would have supported it as well. I think that that was a good ordinance. No big deal. As in terms of filling all the vacancies in the police department at this time and just hiring police, I think that's totally wrong, because I believe we'll never have enough police officers on the street. We have to do crime prevention. We really have to work with gang enforcement. We have to work with schools to stop truancy. We have to be out there stopping crime before it starts, and we have to engage neighborhoods in doing that. So it's got to be a balance again. Just hiring more police officers will never cut it in my book.
But
Let's move on to the budget.
No, I'm going to say this. I'm going to say this. This is the difference. This is the difference, okay?
Well, we're going to move on and talk about the budget, and you're happy to hear you talk
Okay.
about it there.
You got it. Go for it.